unknown, unnamed and unauthorized script writers. Very, very well written, isn't it? And that brings out good writing skills, brings out the best in a speaker. So I chose these two clips just to show the metaphors, the paper tears, and just to show how a brilliant piece of script writing can be done. Okay, so that is the conflict. Let's go to the second heart of the spell, the engagement. That is characters. Now everybody enjoys good characters in the speech. You need to have, you can't be the only character in your speech, isn't it? There have to be a bunch of characters which bring about engagement. Imagine why all of you all go to Garuda Mall and all that, not only for shopping but also to have a good look around at characters, right? Okay, so you'll want to watch people, you'll want to have, and that brings the masala into your actual script. But I have a problem with this, because when I said this in another Toastmasters meeting, the next time the person came out with a speech, I thought it was going through Bangalore Directory. It had so many characters. So you have to use characters, don't abuse them. Now again I'm going to show you a clip. This is by Brad Ballinger. He's bringing out a clip of a Down syndrome kid in a basketball match. Just wait for the fun towards the end, okay?
The Special Olympics give both children and adults with mental retardation an opportunity to participate in international athletic competition. Perhaps it's for this reason that they're also known as the Smiling Olympics. In fact, at what other world event will you see the crowds cheer more loudly for the last place finisher than for the first place winner? And nowhere else was the spirit of the Special Olympics shown more real to me than that basketball game at which I was working. I was the water server for one of the teams which unfortunately found themselves in the short end of a very lopsided score. To make matters worse, their best player had to leave the game with an injury. In came his replacement. A young boy with Down syndrome who was no taller than my chest. While he was out there on the court, it became apparent to everyone in the arena that he was really struggling that day. He didn't know where he should be standing, which person he should be guarding, not even which basket he should be shooting at. I looked on with awe at what followed. The opposing team members were placing him into the proper positions and telling him which person to guard. His own team members were giving him the ball more frequently, even though they were losing, just so he could have the opportunity to make a basket. Well, even though he was getting all of this help and encouragement, he still wasn't playing very well. He hadn't made a shot the entire game. But with 1 minute remaining, he was fouled. As he stepped up to that free throw line, the crowd rose and began to cheer. His own teammates were standing and waving their towels. The opposing team members were hollering out words of encouragement. The referee handed him the ball. He looked at his target, licked his lips, brought the ball back, and hurled it toward the basket. I wish I could tell you that the ball went straight in, but it didn't. It bounced around on the rim a little bit and then fell in.
Gopal got it. It bounced around and then got in. So he created that twist in the end. I'll talk about twist when I'm talking about laughter. Okay, and the last thing is the command in your engagement. Now there are two types of command. Command over your voice. And voice doesn't only mean your pitch, your loudness and your pace. Sometimes, I'm just going to show you a 40-50 second clip of how a pause can be used brilliantly. This is by the 2000 world champion Ed Tate. Listen. He's talking about an incident where he's talking about an incident where he's waiting in a queue to book an air ticket and see what happens with the passenger before him goes in and see what happens. Okay, just listen to this.
The customer service agent said, "Sir, the next flight where I can get both of you on the flight is at 6 o'clock. He said, "Do the math, Lenny. The wedding is at 5. silence was deafening. Then he showed off, and I was next.
Just observe this, okay? He committed the unpardonable sin. He called her the B word. After that, he gave a pause of 2.5 seconds. And after that, he said the silence was deafening. And can you imagine how long did he pause after that? 7 seconds. We timed it. 7 seconds in an international world championship final. A pause is a mechanical device. It reiterates a message. But a silence is a message. And that message was brought out brilliantly by Ed Tate by pausing for 7 seconds. Isn't it? So just remember, great speakers are never afraid of silence. They use silence to create magical moments. Okay, so that's why I wanted to talk about the pause. We've talked a lot about vocal variety and my time is running out. And just look at the second command, the command over your body language. You know, body language, I'm not that great at it, but I just tell you that whenever you make your audience go to the place where you're talking about, that is great body language, and that is illustrated by this guy called Robert Ferguson. Just listen to this.
It's me! We have known each other for only 3 weeks, but we were 16 years old and so in love. I was spending the summer with relatives far from my hometown, and there were 2 things standing between me and Susie: her mother and her father. But nothing could keep us apart. On the last night before I left for home, she called me and said, "I have to see you. Come to my house late and bring a ladder. Look for the open window. Then climb up and kiss me." Oh, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, that was a motivational speech. When I saw her face in that window, I flew up that ladder and into her arms, and we shared a kiss so passionate, I felt completely alive.
Okay. He was talking about climbing up a window to kiss his girlfriend. I hope you understood that. Okay. Okay. I am not going to go into details. Okay. I didn't. Anyway, the other part of the speech was censored. Okay. So, okay, coming to the point. Let's move on. After engagement, what happens? Laughter. Now, there is a common saying in Toastmasters parlance that if you don't want to win a speech contest, don't use humor. And it's as important. All the clips which I've shown you so far have used humor to some effect or the other, right? Isn't it? And there's a brilliant saying which says, use self-effacing humor. There is no humor in you if there is no you in the humor. And that is extremely important. Use jokes at yourself, and when you talk about self-effacing humor, try and poke fun at yourself, because if you can't poke fun at yourself, only then poke it at others, okay? Remains in your speech. Okay, never mind. But always remember this, that humor plays a very, very important role. Self-effacing humor. The other day I went with my wife, who's a very, very big fan of art, okay, to Alliance Francaise, okay, an art exhibition. Now I can't see art, I don't know anything about art, but she loves it. So we went in, it was a little crowded out there in the art exhibition, so we walked, and everybody in that art exhibition makes the same comments. Either when they like the painting, oh, brilliant piece of work, so intricately done, so wonderful use of colors. And if they don't like a painting, oh, it's a little too abstract, oh, it doesn't fit correctly, it's too gaudy. So after going 3 or 4, everybody was making those comments. I thought, I should make a few comments. So I stood and I started telling, means there was a man standing next to me. I told, oh, it's a little too abstract, isn't it? It's a little gaudy. The colors are not good. That man told me, sir, you're looking at the mirror, sir. So that is self-effacing humor. Second point about humor is, it's not so much about what you say, it's also about what you do. And my mentee is here, Sachin. He had a brilliant speech, he sent me his speech, and it was a very nice speech. My embarrassing moments, He delivered it in Bangalore Toastmasters and the response wasn't good. And just the week before, he had done an installation ceremony for Bangalore Toastmasters and turned out brilliant. Everybody was laughing. And he asked me on the way back when he was dropping me, he asked me, Rathi, why did they laugh? And I started thinking, because when I also did my CC 1 to 10, I didn't have much of humor in me. And I remember when I started off my humorously speaking manual in the ACB, I started off and I knew there was one line which will make the audience crack up. It was really hilarious. And when I said that line, nobody laughed. Then I felt pity on myself, I smiled and I said it was quite funny when I rehearsed it. And everybody laughed. Okay. After that I had an insight. Audience will never laugh unless you give them the permission to laugh. They will never laugh. If you have a serious face, as if you've come back from the toilet having castor oil with a constipated face, they're not going to laugh because they think, my God, if we laugh, will this guy take us seriously or no? So unless you give them a small smile, a mischievous look here and there, until you give them the permission to laugh, they are not going to laugh. And that was a big insight for me, isn't it? So remember, your humor not only comes by what you say, but also what you do, a little bit off stage, on stage. The third thing about humor is, use jokes appropriately. I've been a victim of this, okay? I've been a big time victim of this. I used a incident in a Toastmasters meeting, and I'll tell you the incident. Okay, this was an incident where in my speech I wove in a joke, okay? It was a joke of three men going to the gates of heaven and meeting St. Peter. St. Peter asked the first man, have you been faithful to your wife? And he said, no sir, I've cheated only 40 times. St. Peter said, okay, now till the gates of heaven, I'm giving you the small moped, you have to drive and go around. The second man went in, he said, did you cheat on your wife? He said, yes sir, I've cheated only 10 times. He said, you can take a bigger bike, take a motorbike and go. The third guy, he came up, he said, did you cheat your wife? He said, no sir, I never cheated my wife. He said, okay, for you we have the best Mercedes-Benz. Take this Mercedes-Benz and go off. At the end of the day, these three friends meet and they find the guy in the Mercedes-Benz sitting on the steering wheel crying desperately. They said, why are you crying? You have a Mercedes-Benz, you're enjoying yourself over here. We've just got a moped and a motorbike. He said, that's not the point. I just saw my wife coming in a cycle. Now this audience likes these type of jokes, I'm happy. Okay? But when I cracked it in a club, my God, it was scary. There were no women in the club, I couldn't make out. Okay, whatever happened. But this joke cannot be told in all occasions. It has to be appropriate. And finally, remember, your humor or your laughter comes through a twist. You expected something and it takes you to a different direction. There's where the humor comes, right? So unless you have an unexpected twist, you will never be able to create that message, isn't it? See, I remember when I was, again, one of my speeches in my CC manual where how I joined Toastmasters. And the speech goes like this. I say, who knew that one day my friend Justin would say, come over to Bangalore Toastmasters and see how it is. Who knew I wouldn't be interested at all? And say, no, I'm good at public speaking. Who knew one day, tired of the nagging of my wife, I said, okay, let's go and try it. Who knew once I get into the Bangalore Toastmasters, somebody would give me a topic to speak which I didn't know anything about? Who knew that after a point of time, I would enter the contest and start winning? Who knew after a point of time, somebody rang me up and said, Rajdeep, how much do you charge for giving a speech? Who knew? I would tell him, charge? I don't charge for giving a speech. He said, don't you speak for a charge? I said, no, I speak for free. Who knew? After some time, he would tell me, Rajdeep, we were thinking of giving you at least 3,000 for that speech. And immediately, who knew? I would answer, yes, you heard me right. I speak for free. I don't speak for free. So even when you're talking, I didn't remember the speech correctly, but that time it came out really well. Who knew I'd speak for free rather than speak for free? So what happened is I brought about a twist. So unless there's an unexpected twist, people will not laugh. Okay, now just two very short clips. One, I'm going to show you about how you can use your face to create humor. This is one of the International Toastmasters presidents, Jana Banhill, but she was also a wonderful speaker, okay? So just look at how she uses her face to create humor. She's entered a Toastmasters competition and she's talking about her experience there, okay?
I will never take a first time I entered this contest. I was a new Toastmaster and I made it to Legion, where I was overwhelmed. The first time I saw the lights, the red light had been on about 2 minutes. The poor little timer, bless her heart, was sitting there like this.
See, as I said, just by using the facial expression, that was described to me by Sachin, so I don't know how he described it, okay? Okay. He found her face funny. And the second clip is also chosen by him, Mark Brown, the winner of the 1995 Toastmasters World Championship. Now, there's an interesting story to this. Just listen to the speech, and after he finishes the speech, when he gives the twist, just observe him, okay? Just observe him completely, especially observe his face. I'll tell you the interesting twist to this, what the entire story is about. You might not find this funny, but even then. It's a story, he's talking about the Beauty and the Beast in the 1995 World Champion, where he's singing a song about the Beauty and the Beast, and then he comes to the end. And I'll tell you why I chose this clip for this session. Go ahead.
This angry mob cuts down trees and they make trunks. They brandish knives, pitchforks, and torches. And they march through the forest, saying, "We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious at least. Bring your guns, bring your knives, say your children and your wife, and say more village and no lives. We killed the beast." Why?
We will kill the beast. And then he said, why? And if you noticed him, he was very shocked when people laughed. If you see his eyes, he's very, very shocked when he laughed. This was told to me personally by Mark Brown when we got a chance to meet him in Chennai, when Nagaraj Rao was the district governor, and which year was it? 2010, right? Yeah, 2010 in Chennai. And when he was talking about this, he said, Rajdeep, humor is very, very unpredictable. When I said this line, when I said why, if you see my speech, I expected deafening silence. But suddenly people started. So, just remember, even after I said this, I expected deafening silence. Okay, but you all... Okay, so you never know. You never know when people can crack up. And this was a shocking thing for him, he told. It took up nearly 15-20 seconds of his speech. Okay, so just remember, humor can be contagious, and these are just small things. The last L in casting a spell is leaving a legacy. Now, let me talk about leaving a legacy, because generally, you believe that you have to do something different, you have to be totally different from somebody else. You have to undertake gimmickry to do something different to leave a legacy. See one clip where a person uses gimmickry, but I'll tell you why this was so effective. This is by Darren LeCroy, the 2001 world champion. Just see, it's the beginning of his speech. You can see how you can nail a contest in the first 50 seconds.
Can you remember a moment where a brilliant idea flashed into your head? It was perfect for you. And then all of a sudden, from the depths of your brain, another thought started forcing its way forward through the enthusiasm until finally it's shouting, "Yeah, great idea, but what if you fall on your face?" What do you do when you fall on your face? You try and jump right up and hope no one noticed? Are you more concerned with what
when he said fellow contest chair right from where he was. He didn't get up there. But you should know one thing about Darren LeCroy. He's an established stand-up comedian in US. So if he does it, it's absolutely okay. Somebody like me goes and falls on stage and says, "Your contest chair," and all, they lift me off stage and go. Okay. I remember this because I have to bring this out, because when you think of leaving a legacy, you think you have to be as great as the best speaker. And when I joined Bangalore Toastmasters, we had a great legacy of speakers. And we have one amazing speaker called Claudius Pereira. Now if you listen to him, you feel like imitating him. Okay, he speaks in a very loud baritone voice and in a very commanding style. And I found that one or two of my speeches were getting very, very mimicked him, like cloning, means he was not even my mentor, and even then I was cloning him, correct? And the shock came when I started realizing that even in ordinary life I was cloning him. If I used to go to a restaurant, I used to say, "Please get me a masala dosa, and 2 glasses of water, and 1 gobi Manchurian." That waiter used to think I'm crazy. What's this fellow has to shout for gobi Manchurian? And after that I realized, absolute rubbish to imitate somebody else. The greatest thing you can do to win a speech contest is to be yourself. Be as natural as possible. And I've faced this question many times, that you say you have to be natural, but it's always gimmicks that win. It's always you have to be a little artificial. See, I've gone through this and I've debated this 100 times. And the answer came to me by one of the oldest books written on public speaking. It's called The Art of Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie. Have you heard of it? Please read that book. Means it's okay book, means not so contemporary, but even then. The Art of Public Speaking, and he says, be natural but enlarged. Be natural, but you don't have to behave like a robot or a stupid fellow coming on stage and to totally change your entire. Be natural, but put more punch, put more force into your speech. If I'm speaking to Sachin next to me, I can speak in a normal tone, but can I speak to that when I'm speaking to you all? No, I have to enlarge myself, but I don't have to be so fake. I don't have to become artificial. And the greatest thing you can do is never ever fake your identity on stage, because the judges will find out sooner or the other. I always tell this to every mentee of mine, you can be the best yourself and the second best somebody else. And it's very, very true. And that's why leaving a legacy is so important. So let me leave you with this last clip. This is not a very acclaimed clip, but I'll tell you why I chose this clip. This is by a person, a French American called Jay Gamache. Now there are two things. One, he never gives up his accent. He's talking about his grandpa Abenar, who gives him his name subsequently. But I also want you to see how brilliantly and naturally he uses a prop. I was trying to search in Toastmaster forums, where has the best prop been used in an international speech contest? And many responses came to this, and I thought this was one of the best. And I want you all to do me a favor. When you see this clip, please tell me in how many ways can a single prop like a chair be used. Okay, just look at this and see how natural he is. Okay, Jay Gamache.
I can still see him sitting off to one side of the room, a tin of tobacco between his knees, rolling another cigarette, unreachable in his silence, as if his shyness chained him to his chair. We were both the same. For example, at movie theaters, I would rather sit in the front row than disturb anyone to have a decent seat. Have you ever watched a movie from the front row? When Abenar passed on, he was 92 years old. I will never forget that day. When I entered his hospital room, he had just died. I was alone with him. become so thin that I could hardly recognize him. For a moment, I thought I was with a stranger. I wanted to touch him, but all I dared to do was to rest a finger on his big toe. Thank you, Grandpapa. Thank you for giving me your name. I am so proud to be called Avenant. Bon voyage.
How many times, in how many ways did he use the chair? He used it in 4 ways. One, to symbolize the solitude of his grandfather. The second time, the sitting on the chair, he used it to show the seat of a movie theatre, correct? The third, he showed it as the hospital bed, and the fourth as a symbol of him passing away, correct? So he used one single chair 4 times in the most natural and the most brilliant way to illustrate a point. And it's not necessary that you have to fake your accent or do something out of the ordinary to go into the International Speech Contest finals. Just last 2 tips. One, when you are entering a speech contest, if you have an image of going on stage to impressing the judges and winning the contest, the chances of you winning diminish drastically. I know this by personal experience. If you go on stage with the intention of giving a powerful message in those 7 minutes, the chances of you winning the contest increase drastically. The second thing, if you go into the contest with a view of defeating somebody else, the chances of you winning diminish drastically. Oh, how's that fellow preparing? How's this fellow preparing? What the hell? Even if he prepares whatever, are you going to change the script? Oh, the practicality is that. But if you go with the intention that I should win, give my best shot, the chances of you winning become very, very high. Just like to end by saying one thing, a small story. When I was with my son, we bought him a small child laptop where he had to enter the password to get into the computer. So every time he used to ask me to key it in. His name is Pratyush, okay, so Pratyush, and I used to key it. So I got fed up one day. I had to learn your spelling. This was when he was 5 or 6 years old, and key in the computer and go and log in yourself. He started logging himself. The other day my friend came and asked him, Pratyush, what is the spelling of your name? And he said Pratyush, enter. I'm ending with enter so that you all enter the speech contest and make a big show of it. Thank you so much.